Hello everyone, my name is Jérémy Frey, and this afternoon I'm going to present you Breeze, wearable for sharing biofeedback. This project has been done in collaboration with May, Ronit and Jessica, Jessica who should be here somewhere in the room with us. It was done during my postdoc in IDC Herzliya in Israel. In this project we're interested in biosignals. So biosignals are physiological measurements, and among the most widely used biosignals, we can list breathing, electrodermal activity, which is basically sweat, or electroencephalography, EEG, brain measurement, or heart rate. In this project, we are interested in breathing because it has this unique property that it can be consciously and easily modulated. So now that we have biosignals, thanks to that, we can help people to regulate their inner states, for example, their emotion or stress. And in order to do so, we will provide people with a biofeedback. So biofeedback, it's a feedback about a biosignal. So for example, we have one user, we are measuring their breathing, we create a visual feedback out of it, for example, a circle which could grow or shrink depending on the breathing, and then if we provide this biofeedback to the user, it would help them to reflect on their physiological activity and regulate their state. So now this is one user scenario, but in this project we are interested in what could emerge from a multiple user scenario. So for example, if we have one user, we are creating a biofeedback, and then we display this biofeedback to a second user. And then for this second user, we also create a biofeedback that we send back to the first one. So here we achieve another level of biofeedback loop. And in such a scenario, for example, it could be used for a group of users to better acknowledge the state of the people around them, and it would be used to improve our mutual understanding. And in fact, on the long term, we envision that a biofeedback could even be used for communication. So in order to achieve this goal, we looked at the prior literature and at existing products on the market, and we did not find any device which could help us achieve this goal. So in fact, we created our own device, a wearable, and we created it so that it could be used both as an input and output. So both here measure breathing and display a biofeedback about breathing. Also, we created a wearable device that would be non-invasive, that people could easily put on or remove depending on their needs. And as well, we wanted the wearable to handle various contexts of use in order to adapt depending on the situation. So I will now briefly describe the design process for both the input and the output. Concerning the output, among the variety of measurement that could be achieved for measuring breathing, we chose ballistography. So ballistography is a non-invasive measurement of breathing, and it relies on an inertial measurement unit, an IMU. In fact, it will measure acceleration or rotation, detect subtle changes, and that could in turn infer the movement on the body and then the breathing. So this technology is sensitive, however, to motion artifacts. So we need to carefully position the device on the body. So using a user-centered approach, we first considered putting the device on the wrists, because this is a location where we are quite used to wear jewels, and probably some of you have watches right now and even maybe smartwatches. However, since we are using our hands quite a lot during daily activity, for example, if we move our hands a lot when we talk, this is not a viable location in order to measure breathing. So when we turn to the literature, we saw that the chest is in fact a good location both for gland stability and access time. And as a matter of fact, since when we breathe, we mostly move the chest, this is also one of the best locations in order to measure breathing through an IMU. So we validated that indeed we would be able to measure breathing from this location with a pendant. So we compared our pendant with a state-of-the-art measurement tool for breathing, for instance, a breathing belt. And here we have a correlation between the measurement coming from the pendant and the measurement coming from a breathing belt, which was strapped around the chest. Now we'll describe how we created the feedback, the biofeedback modality. So we had several requirements. So we wanted to create the simplest form of biofeedback so it could be intuitive and users would not need to learn in order to understand it. And as well, we wanted to embed various feedback modalities within the same pendant in order to comply to various contexts of use. So we created a visual biofeedback, which is just the change in brightness of a color. Then, we created an audio biofeedback, which is the modulation of a peak noise. So the noise would increase when someone is breathing in, and it would decrease when someone is breathing out. And finally, we created an haptic feedback using a vibration motor, which intensity would as well increase when we breathe in and decrease when we breathe out. So for example, if someone wants to keep biofeedback private, maybe they would use the haptic feedback, whereas if someone is willing or want to display a breathing biofeedback, then they might choose the audio biofeedback. So as a result, we created a Breeze, a pendant to measure and display a breathing biofeedback. And here is like a short use case that we envision for this pendant. So for example, here we have a couple living far away one from the other. And the second user, each of one are wearing the pendant, and the second user is facing a stressful situation. So for example, it could be a Mac which crash, or being a live stream at Kai. And then, if this happens, the first user would manage to detect a change in breathing from her partner, and she would in turn try to calm down and breathe in slowly and deeply in order to communicate relaxation through the biofeedback to the second user. And the second user in turn would notice this change in breathing from his partner, and that would help him to cope with the situation. So now that we have the technology, we were interested in several research questions. We wanted to investigate how and if and how people would be able to understand a breathing biofeedback. And in particular, we wanted to investigate if people would be able to relate various features of breathing to various emotions. And we wanted to investigate if the biofeedback modality would change the perception of the biofeedback. So we found a gap in the literature, and we did not find a systematic comparison of both breathing features and feedback modalities. So then we created a lab study using computer-generated breathing pattern in order to precisely control what we were displaying to the user. So from the literature, we found various breathing features that could be interested in order to perceive emotion. So we were interested in the pace of the breathing, in the amplitude of the breathing pattern, in the time spent between inhalation and exhalation, and if the breathing were held in or out. And as well, we were interested in the variability of the breathing. So this is our first independent variable. And as well, as I said previously, we were interested in the effect of the feedback modality. So we compared visual feedback to the audio feedback to haptic feedback. And in this case as well, because we wanted to precisely manipulate the feedback, we used a fixed setup with a screen and speakers to provide for visual and audio feedback, whereas the pendant was still used to provide for the haptic feedback. And during the lab study, participants had to complete only one task. They had to rate the emotion that they were perceiving within the breathing biofeedback. They had to rate the emotion alongside the 3 dimensions, the first one being valence, if the emotion is negative or positive, arousal, which relates to the intensity of the emotion, and dominance, which is how much you are in control of your emotion. So we recruited 14 participants from 21 to 32 years old. We created 10 different breathing patterns, and each one of these patterns were displayed using each feedback modality. So during one session, we provided 30 trials of 40 seconds. So let's see a quick example of how it worked in the lab. So we have here a participant watching at a visual breathing biofeedback for 40 seconds, and after 40 seconds, she would try to rate what was the emotion associated to this particular breathing feedback. And in order to do so, she would use a graphical scale to rate the three dimensions of emotions. So our first results concern a lexicon of breathing. So here we associated various breathing features with dimensions of emotion. As compared to a baseline which corresponded to the average of our user group, we looked at breathing patterns which were either deep or shallow, patterns which were fast or slow, patterns with a short inhalation time or a short exhalation time, patterns that were held in after inhalation or held out after exhalation, and variable pattern. And in fact, we had several significant differences between those patterns, those features, and the ratings, the emotional ratings. For instance, a breathing pattern with a pause after the exhalation was perceived as having a higher valence, whereas a deep breathing biofeedback and a variable breathing biofeedback were rated lower on the valence scale. A fast pattern and a pattern with a slow exhalation time were associated to high arousal, whereas a shallow and slow pattern were associated to low arousal, and finally a shallow pattern was as well associated to a low dominance. So in the end, we demonstrated that indeed participants were able to perceive subtle differences within specific breathing features. And in fact, you can use this lexicon in order to convey specific emotion within a breathing biofeedback. Now, concerning the feedback modality, we first asked users about their preferences. So users said that the visual feedback was easier to follow and that the audio feedback was relaxing. Some of the participants said that they could use the haptic feedback in order to relate better with someone else. But for most participants, the haptic feedback reminded them of smartphone notification. So despite those preferences, when we looked at the results from the task, so at the incidence of the feedback modality onto the rating of emotion, the haptic feedback was only associated with a slightly higher valence. And there was no significant difference on the other two dimensions of emotion, arousal and dominance, and there was no significant differences between a visual and an audio feedback. So with this result, we could see that the feedback modality has a little impact onto the perception of emotion from a breathing biofeedback. After the end of the experiment, we conducted a semi-structured interview, and in fact, we got one unexpected and striking result. It was that participants, almost all of them, all of them, correct, were mimicking consciously the breathing pattern in order to understand it. Meaning that when they were facing this unknown biofeedback, they reproduced it in order to infer the emotion that this other person was feeling at that moment. And this is very encouraging because that could indeed mean that breathing biofeedback could be used for communication, because naturally, when we are facing such feedback, we will synchronize with the pattern. And concerning privacy, almost all participants were willing to use such technology to communicate their breathing biofeedback, 12 out of 14. Half of the participants would use such technology in order to share breathing biofeedback with a family member, while the other half of the participants would be willing to share this feedback with friends, or if you are lucky, with a great research team in Israel. Concerning the future work, at the moment we are in the process of deploying the technology outside of the laboratory and go wild. We want indeed to investigate ecological settings and to see how such technology could indeed support communication at distance, for example within a family or with partners living far away. And we are also interested in healthcare, so how the technology could be used by caregivers and caretakers. So this was Breathe, a pendant to measure breathing and communicate breathing biofeedback. in order to improve connectedness. Also, I have to say that in the team in Israel, next to Tel Aviv, we are interested in recruiting interns, and we are really eager to collaborate. So if any one of you is interested in such topic, please do contact us. I thank you for your attention, and I welcome any question you might have.
Hi, Vikram Mehta, Open University UK. Thank you for the talk. So when you showed the scenario, I was wondering that it's so easy to communicate stress in a sense that, I mean, sometimes it is important to know the context of how the person has got stress, right? So if it's like a fear or flight response, and if the person is supposed to be in stress and then fight for his safety or run from that place, and the pendant starts calming him down, what have you thought of such scenarios?
Yeah, so it's a good remark. Indeed, as we have seen in other session, context is important in order to interpret biosignals. So here we are interested more in the fundamental knowledge. So basically, if with a simple cue, without context, people would be able to perceive differences. And we see, then we demonstrated that there were some trends, but indeed, afterward, and it's in the paper, we asked participants what they perceived from this biofeedback, if they associated like a scenario with it. And indeed, for most of them, not only they tried to rate the emotion, but they also imagine lots of various situations, such as I'm gonna miss my bus, or I'm happy because I'm watching a good movie. So, but indeed, like in the future work, and this is also part of the reason why we want to deploy, is to sense how this information could be modified, shifted, depending on the context and depending on how people would actually live and use it.
Thank you.
Hello, this is Pablo Paredes, Stanford School of Medicine. So I'm very confused with your results, because shallow breathing is usually associated with high arousal. There's tons of research on that. And you communicate that your shallow breathing is actually reducing arousal, and then the opposite on the deep breathing. So I'm very, very confused. Either did you ask people to follow the pattern, or did you just ask to interpret the signal? Because this is completely counterintuitive with the understanding of respiratory sinus arrhythmia and how the heart modulates and breathing modulates the heart. So I would like to really understand, did you just ask to see the signal, or did they perform the task in order to understand it?
So the instruction was really to watch at the breathing biofeedback that was supposedly coming from someone else, like recorded, and then they had to like to rate, to assess what emotion this person was feeling. So indeed, maybe there's discrepancies between the literature about what, like how the breathing feedback is modulated depending on the inner states. So I will have to look back. I think for some of the features, at least it was consistent. So I will get back to and see how much it could vary depending on the amplitude. And yeah, here it's really to grasp the information from the biofeedback, but maybe that could be like related to the previous question, and see maybe in context, like maybe like this discrepancy is due to the lack of context. So that like it's still it was more about fundamental knowledge about the information you can grasp from a breathing biofeedback and some trends. So maybe people like naturally they have, even if it's counterintuitive, they do not relate high amplitude with like low arousal. So we have to investigate. At the moment, it was really about judging, and that could be a good like study. Try to then close the loop and infer the emotion that was indeed conveyed from the participant. So.
All right. Thank you.
Yasaman Tafidgar from University of Washington. I was wondering what are your thoughts about the impact of the medium through which you're both expressing emotions to people and sensing their emotions. And the reason I'm asking this is that Yohanan and McLean at the University of Washington have some seminal work, and they have actually looked at very similar things, but their medium has been a zoomorphic robot.
Yes, so indeed I'm aware of this work, which I find very interesting. So we chose this biofeedback because they were like really simple to implement. So I think it might be a bit more complicated to actuate an object as compared to display a light. And then just there's we can invest in the future work as well. I did not mention it, but also we can try to investigate other feedback modalities. So we are thinking about, for example, heat or actuation indeed in the paper, but it would be future work. Because at the moment, with the current technology, we are able to embed within the same device only 3 feedback modalities. But indeed, it might be interesting to see if other feedback modalities, such as actuation, could have a different impact on the perception of emotion.
So they were, okay, sure. I'll
Thanks.
follow up.